Hello, my name is Kai, and I am a bit of a rambler. I like to travel, learn, and tell stories. Thank you so much for listening. I think I left off at carbolic soap, Korean chicken, and a higher withdrawal Panamanian city limit for the ATMs. And I want to continue with that because it's so nice not having to worry about how much I withdraw from the ATM, because it's kind of a pain because I don't use any cards with no international transaction fees or foreign transaction fees. So I'm kind of careful about my cash, and Panama has a lower limit than a lot of countries, and things are more expensive than a lot of countries. So I'm glad I found that ATM, but moving right along, there was a cool motorcycle helmet while I was walking to the store to celebrate my new flush status and buy a bunch of micro party beers and prosciutto and other snacks. And I was walking down the street and there was a guy with a Guy Fawkes motorcycle helmet. So the visor was the Guy Fawkes mask, but it was entirely made out of multicolored sequins. So there was gold and emerald and ruby, an opal and amethyst, like all in this amazing carpet of jewels that made the Guy Fawkes mask on his visor of the motorcycle helmet. And the rest of it was decorated, like the actual head protective part was decorated with another sea of jeweled sequins of all different colors, mostly gold with patterns going throughout it. But it was a stunning motorcycle helmet, and he was just doodling on his phone on the side of the road while I was walking down to the store. And I kind of got stunned, and I just stopped in my tracks and stared at him. I was like, oh my gosh, can I see that? That's amazing. And he flipped it down so I could check it out and let me look at it. And I was like, yep, that is exactly as cool as I thought it was. That's such a great design and implementation. That is great taste and great execution, my friend. Like, it was done so well, and it was crazy because there could easily have been 10,000 sequins on this single motorcycle helmet, and they were immaculately, specifically presented and designed. Like, they looked so good. Anyway, Guy Fawkes motorcycle helmet made out of sequins. Color me impressed. Oh, I found a new supermarket, which right in time for the cool higher limit ATM withdrawal. There's a supermarket called Machetazo in Panama City, and they have everything all of the other supermarkets have, but all of the produce looks way fresher to me, particularly the meat. The meat looks really fresh. Like, Reba Smith does look fresh, but this place, I don't know, I should look it up, but it has that, like, local fresh look. Like, the blood vessels haven't gone limp yet. Like, the meat isn't fatigued. You know what? Now that I'm talking about it out loud, I'm probably just crazy and making this up in my head. But the meat looks extremely fresh, and it's cheaper than the meat everywhere else. And they have all these, like, local deals. I don't know. It just feels like a much more local store to me, even though it's very clean, huge, has a giant array of everything. It just feels like the local supermarket. Like, that's where you go if you live in Panama City as a local. So I'll be getting my meat from there. And also, they have super cheap beer, like 48 cents for a beer, which is very cheap for Panama. So I got a few of those, and they have a whole aisle of ciders, which is really funny. I think I did, but they called them sidras here, ciders. And I was like, sidras, what a cool name. I wonder what and I drank like 3 sidras before I realized they were ciders. And they say cider in English on the bottle. Actually, some of them say sidra, but you should still figure it out. I should have, since it's an alcoholic apple beverage, and I made ciders for years. So it was really cool to find this new supermarket, Machetazo, because they have bruschetta chips, which are so good. They have tomato flavor, vegetable flavor, sour cream and onion flavor bruschetta chips that are like, ooh, not burnt at all, just perfect with a lot of flavor on each chip. Love them. Man, I got so many good snacks from that supermarket and ciders. But I did have a bit of a trouble that day when I was walking around afterwards, because I was going to stop by the Asian supermarkets. I needed to pick up more hot pot base for my cooking and some egg noodles, because I had finished the last one of my 10-pack. And while I was leaving the Asian supermarket, my slipper broke. I kicked a tree stump, which is already weird, and then my slipper broke, which was strange because they're not that old. It's only been 2 months, maybe 2. Oh, maybe that was the other one that broke before, but whatever. It's been a matter of months since I repaired the sandals the last time, and there's a plastic cap on the bottom of the sandal that holds the paracord, the cord that wraps around my foot to hold the sandal securely to the heel and the balls of my feet. So it's a very form-fitting, comfortable sandal. It's been not too long since I redid that, so I was surprised it broke so easy, and I thought that was weird. And then I sat down and was fixing it, and I realized I would have to re-sew one of the strings, and I was like, oh man. So I checked in my pocket for something to cut them with, and I realized that my keys were gone. And I am 2 miles away from my hotel, 10 minutes away from the Chinese supermarkets, 20 minutes away from the first that giant Machetazo supermarket I just mentioned, just on the side of the road with cars driving by because it's rush hour. It was like 6 p.m., so the sun's just going down, and all of a sudden I realized I don't have my keys. My key has an RFID chip so that I can beep the door so I can get in at all. And then there's one door that I have to enter into my dorm area. And then there's a second key to enter my personal private room. So I lost everything because they're all connected by a key ring. And I was just overwhelmed by panic. I was like, oh no. And it was weird because I mentioned that a girl had locked herself out of her room. And that night, after she did that, I was just hanging out watching TV. And the thought popped into my head, oh man, I'm going to lose my keys. What a pain. And then it was gone. And I was like, wait, what? What do you mean? You're not going to, what are you talking about, brain? And brain didn't answer. And it just let me know that I was going to lose my keys. And I was like, oh man, I hope not. Brain didn't say anything. And then like 3 days later or whatever, or a week, I don't know, bad with time, I'm walking down the street, I weirdly kick a tree stump, and that lets me know that I have lost my keys at some point. I took everything out of my backpack. I couldn't believe it. I'm very careful with my belongings, especially critical belongings like my keys or my wallet, anything like that. I have buttons on my pants, so you can't just take them out. I have zippers, so stuff's not going to fall out. So it was super bizarre to pat down my pockets and not feel my critical belongings in my pockets. But I was like, hey, what have you done recently? I was like, well, went to a bunch of places, got a couple beers. I bought stuff. And so I just walked back one store at a time. I was like, I'll just walk back to all 3 stores. I'll ask them if they have my keys. That's all I can do. If they say yes and have the keys, that's great. And if not, c'est la vie. I'll get new keys. So I walked into the first supermarket, or tiny market, I guess. The Chinese market that I'm familiar with that has the hot pot base I like and the egg noodles I like. And good, cheap vegetables too. And there they were, lying on her counter, and I had clearly taken them out when I was pulling out my change because I paid her $4.50 in coins, and that's the same pocket I usually keep my keys in. So I must have taken out my keys so that I could access the coins more easily. And she knew me, so she just put them aside. And I was effusively thanking her. Oh, 多谢多谢. Oh, 我不知道怎么丢了. And she was just like, I don't care. Just take your keys. Just go. So she was just, I kept explaining like, no, this is so great. I so appreciate it. And she was like, dude, fucking whatever. You're welcome. Leave. Which is so Chinese. It's like, yeah, I saved your life. I know. Bye. So I didn't belabor the point. I tried to thank her for like 25 seconds. I was like, thank you so much. And I bounced out because that's the greatest gift you can give somebody. Leave them alone when they're not looking for company. But now my slipper was broke. I walked into her store carrying my 2 slippers in my hand because I was like, don't fix your slipper right now. Go look for your keys. After you find them, you can fix your slippers. So I walked into her place, slightly rained on, holding 2 slippers in my hand, unshaven. But you know what? She had my keys. She was cool about it. I got my keys. Things are gravy. I mean, except my slipper was broken. So I did want to fix it, but I had snapped the seam ripper, that little thing you slide under threads so you can cut one at a time very precisely. I have a perfect one, and somehow I broke it in my panic while I was trying to repair my slipper and trying to figure out where my keys were before I had found them again. And it's rush hour, and I'm just like, oh man, how do I fix my slippers 2 miles from my house? I forgot to bring the plastic caps that I usually have, just in case the sandals break. I can just pop one on real quick. So I didn't have anything to fix. Actually, I did have one thing that I'll tell you at the end of this story. But I did have one tiny half-inch circle key ring on my hotel key ring, and I had now found my keys. So with that extra key ring, I removed that, connected the keys again, and I slid that keyring through the paracord in the bottom of my sandal, and the keyring was wide enough that it wouldn't be pulled through the hole in the sandal. So that was my temporary fix to hold my sandals shape together and walk home. And once I got home, I figured it'd be an easy fix because I create these sandals from nothing all the time, or upcycled materials. So I knew I'd be able to fix it permanently once I got back to the house. But the keyring worked the whole 2-mile walk back home until literally 10 feet before my front door. I made it all the way home, and 10 feet in front of my door, I was like, wow, I can't believe that keyring worked all 2 miles. And as soon as I thought that, like 3 steps later, it snapped out and the paracord let loose and the sandal came apart. But it held the whole 2 miles back, this temporary fix, and now it was like right in front of my front door. So I can't get real angry at it not working because it worked the entire time I needed it to. So the way these sandals work, they're any normal sandal, and then you tie a series of 3 very simple knots on your ankles and then under the front hole of the sandal to hold it all in shape. And to stop the paracord from pulling back up through the sandal, I sew the bottom half into a small ball, and that is poked through a bottle cap, usually that I use. I'm going to start trying a soda tap because they're made out of metal. I think they'll break less easily. But anyway, the temporary fix worked. I got a small bruise from the metal keyring bumping under the sandal for a 2-mile walk home, but it's fine a day later. And then I permanently fixed it when I got home. That's the other great thing about these sandals. It takes 3 minutes to make a new pair and another couple minutes to sew the knots so that the form holds permanently. Oh, and there was no water. I think I mentioned that earlier, but I had a little left. I had basically one 400 milliliter bottle of water left over, and I just took sips of that and played Resident Evil 8 for 24 hours and took sips of water, fell asleep, and then after I finished the game, 24 hours later, the water was restored and I had water again. so it wasn't a huge issue. When I was in Morocco, I took a 24-hour bus from Marrakesh to Casablanca, I think it was, or Essaouira, actually. And that was a long bus ride, and I didn't want to have to pee on the bus, so I just didn't drink water. And this was a lot easier than that, I'll say, because I had little sips I could take every couple of hours. I've been rewatching old comedies, and by old I mean just comedies I watched before, not from the current year. And I rewatched Tucker and Dale vs. Evil, and I meant to share that and watch it with my family when I visited them this Christmas, but we watched so many things, including Poor Things with Emma Stone and Willem Dafoe, which is such a, not groundbreakingly, but emotionally transcendent movie. It's a fantastic movie. I loved that movie. But we watched so many funny movies that we didn't get around to Tucker and Dale vs. Evil. And I had seen it relatively recently, so I didn't push anybody to watch it. But I just had the itch last week and I put it on, and that is one of the funniest movies still I've ever seen. I got a bunch of Tyler Labine movies, the guy who plays Tucker. Oh no, I actually think he's the guy who plays Dale, although their names are basically immaterial here. Because his performance was so funny, I wanted to see him in other movies. And he's pretty good in other movies, but he just kills this role. I can't recommend the movie too strongly to anyone. Watch Tucker and Dale vs. Evil. It is so funny. And very creative. Very original. I went back, because I watched Tucker and Dale vs. Evil, at the same time a movie came out called This Is the End. And it's one of the Seth Rogen comedies. And it's so funny, and the end of that movie is this musical number, which is one of the best endings to a movie I've ever seen. It's so funny. Everyone looks so genuinely excited participating in the musical number at the end. I love it as much as I did when I first watched it 20 years ago or whatever it was. Could easily be 10 years ago. I don't know time. Yeah, it came out 2013, so a little more recent than I was alluding to. Speaking of movies, or media, I also recently watched Dead to Me again. I thought I had finished the first season, but it looks like I only made it up to episode 8 because the last 2 episodes are crazy, crazy wild and are such a good ending to the first season. So I made it all the way through the second, which was also very good. Now I'm on the third, which is also very good. And I'm excited to finish up the whole show. I think it's a great show and really funny and very relatable for everyone. I mean, not directly maybe, but certainly indirectly. Anyway, it's a great show. I highly recommend it. I'm excited to finish the third season. Oh, geez, you know what? The craziest thing happened this week. There was a huge protest, maybe a shooting. I'm not sure what exactly happened, but I walked out of my door at like 4:30 to go to the supermarket to get ingredients for dinner, and I just noticed everyone was standing on the street the whole time I was walking by and staring at one point, and that happens a lot around here. They're usually watching a soccer game, but this time that's not what was happening. And one of the guys near the gas station kept looking at me, and when I walked up, I was like, "Hey man, what's going on?" Because I could tell he wanted to tell me, and he was my Spanish is not good, but he said there was a fire. They lit a fire at the school, and then he said a bunch of other stuff, and he said the cops are coming, and I'm not sure what else he explained, but basically I couldn't tell if it was a protest or like terrorists, but I'm pretty sure I would have understood like terrorista if he said that. So I think it was a college protest, and they lit some kind of fire, and everyone was just staring on the street, and I was like, whoa, okay, that's crazy, thanks for telling me. And then I kept walking down the street in the direction of the supermarket I was going to, and cops like pulled up, and a guy got out the back and pulled out this huge rifle launcher something and shot a tear gas grenade into the college lawn, basically, or one of the courtyard gardens, whatever they are. Oh, before the cops got there, and after that guy told me that, and I was walking down the sidewalk, I saw people with masks over their faces, like young people, by the way they moved. They were lithe, running across the campus. And there were explosions, and they might have been gunshots. I'm really not sure, because people were like running away on the sidewalk. But they also could easily have been like plastic soda bottle explosions with like baking soda and, just making soda bottle bombs or whatever. So I don't know exactly what was going on, but it was a pretty crazy situation. Then the cops showed up, shot the tear gas in. They shot another tear gas can in, and then one of the protesters picked up one of the tear gas cans and threw it back over the fence at the van, the police van, and like the police quelled the riot or protest or whatever the heck it was. There were only a few people. I was gonna look up what it was, but then I forgot. But like I said, that convenience store told me there's a bunch of corruption going on in the government, and everyone feels that way. So if there was a protest, I'm guessing it had to do with the alleged corruption in the government, which probably happened. It's a government. There's corruption going on. Oh, and what was crazy about the tear gas, so the cloud, like I can't believe the volume of clouds coming out of these tear gas grenades. Like I had seen them in video games and movies and stuff, but it was different in real life. Like the clouds of tear gas were thicker than clouds, if I can describe it that way. If a cloud could be 3 times as thick, if you've ever flown through a cloud in a plane or whatever, I mean, it was very, very thick, and they were the size of a 330 milliliter Coke can, and clouds, like as large as the campus, were flowing out of it, like easily hundreds of cubic feet were gushing out of these cans every second, and they were going the whole time I was walking up. Like it was amazing how much tear gas was flowing out of these cans, and the protesters or whatever they were cleared out after a while, or at least I stopped hearing explosions, and the police vans started moving up the street. I never stopped walking to the supermarket. It was like, I like walking far, so it was like an hour away to walk to, and I was heading the opposite direction, so luckily the wind was taking the tear gas away from me, away from the direction I was going in. I was like, well, that's crazy. And I just kept walking up to the store. But yeah, that was pretty nuts. And then I forgot about it because, of course, and I got back, and the guy here who saw the saltwater crocodiles told me that he stepped out of the casino and there was an awful stench, and his eyes started watering, and I was like, really? And my first thought was like, oh my gosh, the sewer line, because like maybe the power cuts out, whatever. But then he said his eyes were really watering, like it was terrible. And I was like, oh, you know what? There was a police van shooting tear gas grenades. I was like, that was probably it. So we figured out what the problem was with the stench. He said people were walking around holding their shirts up around their faces because the smell was so bad. And I was like, that is the craziest thing I ever heard. And then I was like, oh wait, I saw a police officer shoot tear gas grenades onto a college campus like 2 hours ago. That was pretty crazy. So might have something to do with it. Oh, you know what? Okay, let's go with my favorite. This is my favorite story of what happened recently. I was walking past one of the casinos, and there was a car parked on the curb, and he was like, hey, man, the driver. And I was like, ooh, this will be fun. And he was like, hey, are you, like from the States? Yeah. Okay, I'm from New York. And like from his accent and just mannerisms, my brain was just like, no, you're not. But I was like, oh, cool, what's up, man? He was like, well, I'm a boat captain. And I was like, okay, it's starting off strong. I like it. And he said, so I'm a boat captain, and my crew, they took my suitcases to my boat to like load up all the trunks for the boat. and then we're gonna like drive the boat. We're leaving the dock tonight, but my car's out of gas. And he was sitting in his car, and he was like, so I need like gas for my boat. I am a boat captain. And then he reached over into the passenger seat. He's sitting in the driver's seat, picks up a construction person's hard hat, puts it on his head, and says, "Captain," and points at the hat. And I was just like, I didn't say that's a construction hard hat, but I was staring at it clearly enough to insinuate that this is not a boat captain's hat. This is a hard hat. And he was like, yeah, so like, I just need some gas. I just need to get over there because they have my trunks. Then I can get out of here. I got to leave tonight. It's like really important. And I was like, that's great, man. I'm not going to give you any money though. And he goes, oh, and throws up his hands and leans back, defeated, into his already reclined seat in the car. And I was like, all right, have a good one. I just walked away. I couldn't believe it when he put on the construction hard hat, though. And he was like, I'm a boat captain, and pointed at the hard hat like it was a captain's hat. It was pretty awesome. That was my favorite thing that happened this week. That was so funny. And he was so sincere, as many con artists are. Oh, hey, man, it is so good to see you. Yes, I'm a boat captain. I am from New York, and I need to get gas because my crew has taken all of my suitcases. And I was like, well, this is amazing. Like, I got to see, a scene from a Broadway play right in front of me from this guy who probably borrowed his friend's car or whatever so he could sit in it outside the casino waiting for the gringo to come by. It was a pretty interesting ordeal, event, interaction. So good talking to you again. I will talk to you soon, and thank you so much for listening. I love telling these stories. I'm so glad I get to share these crazy interactions that I end up with like every week. And I never get to share really with friends unless I just happen to be sharing a room or sharing a place with someone that I get to talk to. So it's fun being able to tell you all about these gossips, about these gossipy stories. Have a good rest of your day. Thank you again for listening, and I will talk to you soon.